Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody. This week, we're going to be finally talking about LL since it is relevant. We have skirmishes coming up this weekend. Finally, it feels like I've been waiting, like a month for this. It was like the first thing I was excited about when we got back from Pro Tour Amsterdam. And there's not really anything else to do, so it's a great time to be focusing on LL. Joining me this week is someone who has been doing some spicy testing in LL. Connor has joined back on. Connor, how has your week been and your LL practice?
It's been good. I've really been enjoying LL. I have been brewing a lot. It's like I'm excited to go back through and look at these cards I've never really had a chance to deck build with, like Plunder Run and Stellata. Like I've been playing this Viserai deck that's just trying to turtle Viserai and set up a big combo turn to kill them with a Sonata. And that's pretty fun, and it's a cool thing to try to figure out. Really interesting puzzle put together. It is tough that Zen's Zen state just prevents your whole combo turn. They can make a Zen state that's worth 35 or however many rune chance you have. So that's a little bit tough. So that put a damper on my parade, my Viserai parade. But otherwise, I'm going to still keep testing different stuff and building different decks. So I'm excited. It's been fun so far.
That's great. Yeah, it's always fun if you haven't got a chance to play with the cards, which I know a decent amount of people have not actually gotten a chance to ever use these cards in a semi-competitive or competitive setting. So going back and being able to actually use the cards that are banned is pretty cool. Now, someone who has played all of these cards before, Dan, I know you just started dabbling in LL a little bit, but how's it been going for you so far?
It's been good. Yeah, I've been having fun. I've actually played almost every format this week, which is kind of crazy. I didn't play that many days, but the days I played, played a bunch of stuff. Yeah, Living Legend's been interesting. Unfortunately, no one wants to play Zen, but I think you need to when testing figure out a deck that beats Zen. So I've been stuck just playing Zen, which I've enjoyed because I'm back to the old days of how do I beat these silly ice decks with my aggro deck? How do I get the resources I need or play around Ice React properly? Which really brings me back. It's actually pretty nostalgic to playing Fi and Chain into these things. Chain kind of ignored them though. It's a little different. I also played a draft this week and it was heavy hitters, and my God, you cannot draft these old sets after playing Mistveil. It is just so bad. I forgot how starved you are for blues in every other set. It's pack 3 and everyone's got 6 total blues. It's oh my God. It was still pretty fun, but yeah, I think Mistveil really kind of spoiled every other set for me. And then I played some Riptide CC again, and my locals just keep bringing Sledge Guardian and beating me up. If anyone out there knows how to beat a Sledge with defensive Riptide like the Pablo Pintor PT list, please let me know, because I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to.
There's got to be a way though, man. 10 dominates decent, but the most I've done it is 3 times in a game, and I think you need to do it 6.
Fair. I have been lucky enough to be able to bring the Enigma out at locals and do pretty well with that. It's always fun to actually get to play the full ward package and not just be scared of Murkmire running around, because Billy left. He moved to Tennessee and now he's at Naib's locals, and so
oh nice.
There's no one to bring Azalea every week. I've been unleashed finally. But I am excited to get into LL. I have at least one skirmish I'm going to this weekend, and then I think there's another skirmish the weekend after that. That's LL in my area as well that I'll be going to. So that'll be fun. Getting the touch chain again has been great. Forgetting how to do stacking math has not been as fun, but luckily most matchups don't need it anymore. But we'll dig into that. What I wanted to do on this episode, since one, there'll be a lot of new people who've never played LL before going into the format this weekend and next weekend. And I would definitely encourage, if you have an LL event to go to, definitely make it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. You get to see all the crazy new power. But I wanted to go through some of the most popular decks, kind of talk about maybe some of their problem matchups, or maybe some of the matchups, and kind of just the format as a whole. Barring the fact that we haven't spent a ton of time playing LL, almost no one has. The format is very in an unsolved state, which is exciting. And we do have a new set coming out. We'll see if that has any impact on LL. And most people aren't going to really be spending the time into the format until Chicago, which is at the end of the year. But with literally nothing to practice for right now, a new set that's coming out in 2 weeks, in which we'll be at Tampa for the release, which I'm pumped about, and that you can't practice for right now. It's kind of the best time to start touching LL to kind of get some bearing on what's going on in that format, so that when Chicago comes around, you at least have a good starting point. I figured that we'll spend the episode talking about that today. So with that, let's start with a deck that I'm very familiar with, and Dan's very familiar with, and it's Chain in this current meta. Chain is back. You get to play him. Chain is, I think, in a very interesting spot. I will say the main decks of the format right now are Chain, Oldhim, Lexi, both Prisms, Zen, Icelander, and that's the main part. There is also a couple of fringe decks like Kano, Berserker KO, Reinhardt, that are like a Berserk combo deck. But that is most of the decks in the format. Obviously, at your skirmish, you could see anything be there, of course. But those are kind of what has Starvo. If I didn't mention that, I thought I did. But
Did you say Oldhim?
I said Oldhim. Yep.
Okay. I think New should be in there too, maybe.
New? I haven't seen a ton of New, but maybe.
Well, I don't think anyone knows yet, but I'm suspicious that New might be very strong.
But that's kind of what you should expect and what's been popular and what has done well recently. So thinking of that type of format with Chain, Chain is in a weird spot because there isn't a good deck for him currently, and the deck is so flexible that you could play all the new RuneGate cards and make that work, or you could play one of the older styles, and Chain lines up pretty well.
Both.
Or both, or a mix. There's probably some mix in there.
I think the hybrid's like very unexplored.
Yep. And there's some mix in there, but Chain has some good matchups, has some bad matchups. I would overall rank Chain right now as probably like pretty mid into the LL format. That has been my personal experience with the deck. Decks like Lexi are very difficult to play into. They're ice on hit. They're ice on top of having good on hits, and the fact that they have like 3 carrion husks in their deck using their 3 of a kinds makes it a little difficult. It's really hard to have your big power turn when a lot of their on hit arrows are relevant on top of ice, on top of discard. I found that to be one of my hardest matchups. I think the matchups like Oldhim are very easy. I think Starvo is very easy. Starvo is very down powered because of no Oaken Olds. Only having 1 is just not good enough. I think the Icelander matchup's not that bad either. I think it's pretty favored for Chain, especially if you're playing the like 0 cost Chain that's been pretty popular. She just doesn't do damage fast enough, and you just kind of get out of the box. With that said, I think Zen is like impossible. It's just like it's like faster than you. You have no on hits. You just like can't beat Zen.
Well, this is why you play RuneGate, right? That's the appeal there.
You're trying. You're like trying to do damage faster by playing the RuneGates. I agree.
Well, no, RuneGate also gives you on hits, right?
Kind of.
They matter.
What?
No, that's what my current mission is, to figure out this matchup somehow. Because I really want to play Chain, but
yeah,
I don't think the matchup's good enough to consider it.
Yeah, I think its Zen matchup is hard. I think its Lexi matchup is hard, and surprisingly, I think its Prism matchup is significantly harder than it ever was in CC. Their access to relevant on hits. It's easier if you're playing the RuneGate version. I think that version kind of just stomps all over the Prism version because it has poppers like in every hand. But on top of that, they have Warmongers. On top of that, they have Arclight, and their damage output's pretty quick. So it's harder to set up like the time snaps and everything else through the deck. So overall, while I want to play Chain this weekend, there's a chance that I go to my LL tournament and don't bring Chain just because the deck just doesn't feel very good right now. Have you had any different experience, Dan, or any other matchups?
Well, are you talking about just like traditional Chain?
I'm talking about both versions.
From your experience? Or have you been doing both? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I want to play Chain at one of these at least. I haven't practiced it yet. I really want to, but I keep being forced to play Zen. So if I have time, that's where I'll be starting. And probably leaning towards some kind of RuneGate build. But yeah, no, I agree with your matchups, I think. Yeah, I think traditional chain is just like too fair, which is wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little slow. Sometimes your shackle misses. I don't know.
I mean, Starvo used to be a problem matchup. I think that matchup's easy. It's like one of your easiest matchups as Chain personally right now. They just have no real attacks. The deck is just they have big things, but you don't care about big things. They have like 3 on hits in the deck that you care about for the most part. Some are running concuss, so you might care about that, but most of the time you're like, I don't need this card. And you get rid of it anyway. You have a bunch of armor for their like couple of big attacks that matter. I find the Starvo matchups are super easy as Chain. Icelander is way easier than I think most people think it is. If you haven't played the matchup, it sounds hard in your head. Like, oh, they have ice, they have this disruption that's going to come in, but like their damage is so low. You have like so many infinite rounds, and especially it doesn't really matter what version you're playing because you're either playing your attacks for free, in which like 1 blue pays for everything that you need to do on the turn, or you're playing a bunch of zeros, which 1 blue again pays for everything that you have to do on the turn. And that like even if they put you in a lock, like they can only do it for so long and they get chipped out while that's going on. Then you have like 1 big turn and the game's over. So I find that matchup's pretty easy from the Chain side, but man, is Lexi hard. I have no one talk about that matchup, but that matchup against like a good Lexi, you just can't do it. You're like losing on every side of the coin. They're just like, here's a Frostbite, discard a card from your hand. Here's 2 on hit arrows that are relevant. You're just like, I can't just take 10 and like flip a coin if I'm going to be able to play the turn or not.
Yeah, I remember back in CC, the matchup was fine just because like Lexi had no power, right? Like I don't think Codex was a card. All these like infecting shot, all these like big arrows didn't exist. So it's just like you just blocked and it's fine. Like you never take damage if you're iced out. But yeah, I could see how that's a problem now. She got
it's
significant power increase.
The Runegate might make that matchup better. I have not played that matchup with Runegate. I've only played it the other way. So it's possible that helps the matchup out a lot, but man, it's tough because they can block 3 of a kind, do all this shenanigans, discard cards from your hand, give you frostbites, and their arrows are just as good as your Runegate cards, and the Runegate cards are like good. So they have 2 of them. Tough. Anything else, Connor? I don't know if you've played against any Chain.
The deck is obviously still really, really good. I don't know how you ever beat Zen. And I think that's starting to come up a lot with a lot of the decks we talk about. Is like your Zen matchup's just tough. Like I played Lexi in a Zen, similar thing, just like tough to present like any kind of disruption that's relevant, and then also a fast enough clock to actually like punish them for when you get to time walk them. So
yeah, I think it's one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I think someone has to figure out either how to make Chain speed up enough that Zen is always on like a 2.5 turn clock, and then you probably win more often than you lose in that case. Or you just need to be able to like loop disruption until you have a stacked banish and just kill them in one shot.
Yeah, I think it's tough because the Zen matchup, and while we'll get to it when we get to other matchups, I think not every deck has the same Zen problem as Chain does. Chain just like it's just like a 10%, 20% matchup. It's like so you're just worse. You don't have a way to stop them from doing their thing, and they just get to do it when like their thing is better than your thing.
Well, I do think that's every deck in the format that doesn't have disruption. Like you're kind of just a dog to Zen, I think.
Yeah, I think most of the other decks have some form of disruption that makes it relevant, right? And we'll get to them when we get to them, but I think for now, Chain's still fun to play. I have a blast every time I load them up. It's just funny when I'm just like getting beat with these other decks, and I'm like, maybe Chain could just come back into CC, and it wouldn't even be the best deck right now. I don't think that it's that accurate, but yeah, there's a world where I don't bring it. My heart wants to bring it, but there's other decks that I like that exist. So I think we can move on to the next one. Let's talk about another deck that we like or liked at one point. Icelander. Icelander's back. And just so people are aware, it's Icelander with Amulet. Most people play Icelander without Amulet. That's most people's experience with the deck because the play rates were really low before Amulet was banned on Icelander, even though Icelander was obviously the best deck in the format at the time. But with that said, Icelander's back, and I think Icelander's a little mixed. Have either of you played against or with some Icelander recently?
Played like 2 games against one.
With Zen?
A couple total. Yeah, all my games are with Zen, sadly.
Okay.
Yeah, I bumped into Icelander a bunch with a lot of different heroes, and if she can ever time walk you, it's really easy for her to get very far ahead and then just keep the ball rolling. And then if you just get to like present 10 or whatever when she gives up a lot of equity or like life to be able to try to lock you out of a turn, but you still just like deal 10, it's really hard. I think it's hard for her to keep up with that. She does have a lot more blowout opportunities now too, between hypothermia. That card is gross at instant speed. And also channel the bleak expanse is good against a lot of these decks. Shuts down Zen, drawing cards, or tutoring, or a bunch of different things. So it just lines up really well. And so she really can just like blow you out completely, which gives her a lot of equity, and it's a fun little dance to play. She's very Delver of Secrets-esque for me, like a tempo deck that's you gotta walk the tight line perfectly, like the tightrope perfectly, but if you do, you win the game. But if you step off the tightrope at all, you just like can't ever catch up. That's like how it's gone so far, at least.
Yeah, she's got some really strong tools, like a lot of them too. Like a lot of opportunity to juice your opponent out of like multiple cards of value in a game. I think she's in like the exact same meta position as she was when we took her to US Nats, where she's very unfavored into like probably Lexi still and Zen, I would think. But that like 40% of the time where you get them with one effect and they like waste 3 cards, like you just win those games. So I think she's like, I don't know, like probably not the best deck to be playing, but like also completely reasonable, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know, Cody, help me out. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The advantage that Icelander has over like Chain in this instance is Icelander can beat Zen. Like can actually win the matchup. Even some of the times when Zen like gets good hands. Like a good channel on their turn where they're like breaking their arms and going off, and then like you get a channel or a blizzard or something, and you can actually stuff some of their turns is possible. Getting also you can just they're like crack boots, art of war going off, and you're just like crack my boots in response and play other control stuff. Like you can just like instead of trying to use your boots to win the game, you're just like stopping their big turn, and if you can make them do not as much damage, you can play the rest of the game a little bit more fair. Like these are fair things to do. You could try and cut like all the attacks, so if they bring the helmet in against you, it just doesn't do anything. Like you have some options there. They probably should be running links against you, but not all of them will, especially not at like the skirmish level. And then so I think the matchup, while unfavored, is reasonable and playable. Unlike unlike Chain going into Zen, where you're just a dog the whole time.
I think Amulet should help a ton too. I haven't actually played against that and play yet, because it's like Insidious Chill is like literally how you beat Lexi.
Mm-hmm.
But now they have 0 cost one-time effect, and that's usually enough.
Yep. I was gonna circle back to your Lexi comment. I think Amulet makes the Lexi matchup way easier. Yep. Not like easy, but like it was 40-ish% before.
I know the whole matchup was like find it before you're below 20 health. Now we have 6 copies, right? Like
and they're cost 0 that you could just play out of your arsenal while blocking. Yeah. Like I think the Amulet's Lexi matchup is completely reasonable with Amulet, so that's not nearly as big of a worry for me bringing like Icelander.
I think if you enjoy Icelander, like I wouldn't hesitate to bring it.
No, I think its Starvo matchup is fine as well, because Starvo's so neutered right now. They have the big damages, but if you can play that matchup in a couple of different ways. If you have like unmovables and stuff, that it makes the matchup a lot nicer, which is one of the old ways that Icelander used to play those matchups when they were playing into Oldhim. They would sometimes run unmovables and things like that. So there are options. It's a playable match. You're not like a dog. The matchup is playable. Same with Oldhim. I think you're pretty good there. The Prism matchup is completely shiesty. It's just like not. It's the reason Icelander wasn't popular until Prism LL'd. I think at a skirmish level, you can probably juice some Prisms and like get your win. I think if you're playing against,
it should be that bad.
I think if you're playing as good Prisms, the good Prisms, once they figure out the matchup again, I don't think you'll be winning that match.
It probably depends on the build. I don't know. The last time I played that matchup was in Blitz at Worlds, and I felt like I was very favored as Icelander to Prism.
Yeah,
But
they
I
had
think
20
that 20 health makes
20
a
health.
big
Yeah.
difference.
They had 20 health. Also, you're forgetting that like a lot of people are playing new Prism. Like even Prism players don't know if you should play old or new Prism.
New Prism. I have no idea how that matchup goes.
New Prism can flip their figments
Yeah.
in response to like your big attacks. While you can still Waning Moon, a lot of these things are blockable as well, depending on how much AB they want to run, how many shields they have up. So that's always something that you have to be wary of. And they can snowball the game out of control. Also, your Frostbites can help some of the Prism players, especially if they're on like new Prism. Sometimes it's harder to pitch the yellow. They have to run like janky gloves in order to pitch a yellow to get everything go again. But there's a reason why Icelander didn't exist when Prism was also in the format, and it was because they couldn't beat Prism. And Prism's significantly better in LL than it ever was in CC. But with that said, I think at your like skirmish level, you should be able to beat some Prisms until people like really refigure it out. Their Oldhim matchup's fine. We already covered that. You only have one Old, so you're just like playing the same thing again. Any other matches? I think their Berserk match is pretty decent as well, because they can preemptively stop the Berserk turn if they need to. The mirror's fun. It's not as fun because Amulet exists now, but I think it's actually one of the mirrors that you should be pretty happy to play. So, with that said, Icelander can then lose all of these matches. That's the hard part about that deck in LL. It's like it can win all of the matchups, but it could absolutely lose all the matchups as well. Any other thoughts on Icelander?
I wouldn't want to play Icelander unless I was a comfy old school Icelander pilot, because the deck is tough and like everything's very losable, and it can be your fault or it can be the deck's fault or whatever, but it's very losable.
At my locals between rounds, a couple of the players have been playing LL matches. So one of the players plays a lot of Icelander. So he's been playing Icelander, and then after my match, I'll go over and watch him play like Icelander. And it reminded me how much I like the deck because I have completely different opinions on what he should be doing versus what he's doing. And you could probably make an argument on either one of them, but then we won't see the ramifications for 3 rounds on what either one of our plays did. And it was like, oh man, that's why I like playing Icelander. It was decisions matter.
Yeah, I might have to bring her to one of these events. I miss it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I would recommend at least trying to play Icelander if you've never touched the deck before. You'll wonder how it works, and then
try it before the event, and then
no, don't bring it to the event. I bet like just get some reps with it.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Okay, Dan, tell us about Zen.
Tell you about Zen. Well, for me, it started with like I basically built the PT deck I was going to bring before the bans, where it was like Pouncing Link Space, 9 Bonds, Shifting Winds, Fluster Fist, and then I played a couple chain games and Zen mirrors, and this was way too slow. Like that is way too fair for this format. I very quickly, it was like the first day I was testing, I paired into some Zen and we did like a best of 3 or like best of 5. I won the first 2, but then they showed me what they were working on, which was like basically building around Red Predatory Streak as like the power card. Because with Stubby Hammers, it makes you just like it's guaranteed to be insane with any other pump. And like Stubby Hammers is so strong because like we see in CC now, right? Any turn where you have 2 pump effects for the turn, like Art of War, Ancestral, like you're usually dealing more than 40 damage, which is usually enough to win. And Stubby Hammer says you already have one of those, so you just have to find another. So playing cards like Predatory Streak and Roar of the Tiger just gives you more like redundancy for that effect if your goal is to go super fast. So I think you'll see 2 Zens. You'll see like the super fast Zen like that's playing like Lynx and all the Anthem effects and like Tiger generators, and then you'll see more traditional Traverse Zen who's doing like the 9 Bonds type of stuff. And I don't know, I'm kind of at a crossroads now because before all my testing was against aggro decks. So I'm like, yeah, obviously you just want to go fast and play Lynx and all the anthems. But then I played against my old friend Oldhim, who it feels exactly like it felt like in CC when I was playing Fi. And it's just like, you have to play so smart. You have to think about Ice React. You have to think about Blizzard, and Warner's Well is such a messed up card. And Stalagmite. And in those matchups, I really want to be playing like I just want like more redundancy for power because like once your stubbies are gone, like these Anthem cards and Tiger Makers are kind of bad. Where if you have like 9 bonds and shifting winds, now you have like a third cycle plan to keep pushing damage. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of room to innovate with Zen. He's, I think, pretty clearly the best numbers deck. Like in my mind, the LL format right now is like it's just ice decks and the one no or like yeah, it's like ice decks, numbers decks being Zen and Chain, where Zen is like clearly better, and then Illusionists who play on a different axis. And I think Zen's just the best numbers deck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree.
Oh, and I guess Phi also, but he's like Zen is just like, no, I'm better at you, but better. Like not close.
Agreed. I also like links in the LL version a lot. Especially if you marry it with some like blue bonds and stuff like that, you can extend pretty well on your big turns. Yeah, it's tough. It feels like, in my opinion, that the LL format would be in a beautiful state if Zen didn't exist.
Dude, he really should not exist anywhere. It's so bad. Like I really like playing the deck, but it's a problem.
To bring it full circle, it's just like you have this nice triangle, like triangle-ish meta with like playable games in between. Like I don't like the current Chain versus Prism match, but Chain can win and Prism can win. These are playable matches. Like they're, it's not a big deal. I think Chain is favored into Oldhim, but Oldhim can win that match. I think, Chain is, he's favored into a lot of matches, but like, even though I think Lexi's terrible for Chain, I think Chain can win that match as well. It's just like, they're all playable. The matches are playable, which is like really nice. And then Zen comes around and says, some of these matches are just not playable. Like
he's really just Kano. He's just physical damage Kano, I think, in all formats. Yep.
And I think it's kind of crazy. Like if you didn't have to worry about the Zen. So now if you're like not playing Zen, then the option is to try and play a deck that has some percentage points into Zen. Because to be fair, Zen can lose to himself more in LL than in CC. I think CC, the deck's pretty consistent. And I would say before with Bonds, it was decently consistent as well. The current, most of the LL Zens I see right now, sometimes they just don't do anything for like a decent amount of rounds. And I think that'll get cleaned up as more people explore the deck.
Oh, yeah, that's not been my experience. My experience is like if you whiff on your Art of War and Ancestral, that's how you lose.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible as well. It's also possible like you just don't draw good enough pieces to go. When you're facing, I'm talking about when you're facing disruption.
Decks. Yeah. Agreed.
Your deck can just like not get the pieces to function there. And so like the LL to me, as someone who hasn't explored it enough, but has touched it, and touched a lot of the different decks in it, I would say it feels like pick a deck that can beat Zen and then hope that your match goes your way. But there are a lot of games that just like your deck can't touch Zen, so you probably can't play your deck. And if Zen didn't exist, I think the format would actually be like really good. But I can't say that with 100% accuracy. How has your Zen experience been, Connor?
Honestly, I think the hardest part about having Zen in the format is that the pesky equipment. You're like, I'll play Weakest Link, I'll play Command and Conquer, I'll play.
Oh, I think that's the interesting thing about LL. They're playing Stubby Hammers. Like, dude, this deck folds so hard to Weakest Link still. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm about to 50 this guy. Game's over. He's like, Weakest Link. I'm like, I got nothing. Like,
that is true.
Block 2 cards, attack with stick.
That is true. I was trying some Azalea and they didn't, and they presented Shuko, and I was like, no, you're supposed to have stubbies. Like, I don't want that armor there.
Yeah, I think Shuko earned its way into my sideboard, sadly.
But so, like, the fact that they can just shove their armor in front of your disruptive attack, like, and then just protect their turn and still pop off, it makes it so hard when their numbers are going from like 25 or whatever when they kind of chain different bonds. But if they have Mast plus Salt, or even just a lot of times if they're shoving their armor, they'll be playing Traverse, they can still just pop off so hard that it's like you traded, you put in some Flesh and Blood, you got to play your Command and Conquer, Weakest Link, and then they just still like dumped 40 in your lap or whatever. And so I think that's tough because it's like you need to have a lot of disruption like every turn. You always have to be disrupting. And when they shove their armor, if you're playing one of the ice decks, you're just like, please let me draw a blizzard. Like that's your only like out in that spot, whatever, when they start popping off. So I think he's a tough limit on the format. I hope that he could definitely get hit with a restriction or two, and I would be a fan of it. He's not unbeatable. The deck's still kind of awkward and has some problem matchups or problem setups or whatever, but he's so good. He's still the best deck, I think.
I think he's currently kept in check enough, but that might change after I play some actual events. Like I think all the ice decks I knew, like they're hard. If you don't like play well on the Zen side, like you're probably not beating those decks consistently.
I mean, you keep saying new, but I don't think that's a real deck. Prism's just gonna like, I'm not. That
Yeah, but is Prism a real deck?
yes.
If Zen is this good?
I think Prism, while Zen is a hard matchup, does have tools which allow it to shove some of those games, mainly like on Arc-Knight, but Arc-Light is like one of the big ways to do it.
Yeah. It's like Predatory Streak, Arc-Light. Oh no.
It does have on-hits that are relevant that have to be blocked through its heralds. It can counter the pumps with its auras, depending on how long it gets to set up. And then it does get free blocks off of if it's playing the angel side. While that matchup is very difficult, I've seen it Prism win that matchup more times than I've seen Chain win that matchup. To be fair, that's why I think it's like it's in that candidate hole where it's like, can you beat Zen? Sometimes I can play the game, and then his other matchups are actually like really good for it. So it's like I think Prism, and we can move into that. I think Prism is like actually a better spot than I would think when there's like a random aggro deck is just like tearing people apart.
You gotta differentiate the Prisms though. Are you talking about both or one? Okay.
I don't know which one's better, and the community
I just don't see how Prism 2 beats Zen.
And the community can't figure out which one's better either. Every Prism player I talk to, they have no idea which one is the correct one to play. And when Fino's coming over and saying, I think new Prism is actually the best version of Prism in LL, like,
and that's what I would think.
There's like probably something there.
Like 8 health is 8 health, right?
No. New Prism is the best Prism in LL.
That's what I'm saying. I agree with that, but like 8 health is pretty appealing.
It is, but you can make it up with angels. And while your angels don't have Go Again in the version, they are chain enders, and they're pretty easy to flip, and they protect you from health, which is rather nice. And they have relevant effects that you can do at the end. So they do allow you to have ways to like swing. And man, the Spectral Auras are just so good. Like if you open well enough, even into like Zen, and you can combo off because you're still running books in the new one as well. And then you get like 2 parables down and a couple other things. Like Zen doesn't matter at that point. Like, what's he gonna do through 2 parables? Like
probably time skippers.
Yeah. He probably has to. And then you have like arc lights and things like that. It has warmongers for chain. It has, has warmongers for Viserai as well, which is sad for Viserai, even though it's just one. But I think it is in a pretty decent spot. And almost all of its other matchups are just so good for Prism. It's why we've seen it do so well. If you can not play Zen every round, like if you could play like 1 Zen, 2 Zens.
Wait, is it actually good against Starvo now?
Oh, it's great against Starvo.
Okay.
I mean,
I agree that it wasn't in CC.
I think in CC it was good against Starvo.
Okay.
I think that matchup was a skill matchup a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, that's
and a deck construction matchup. I think you could 100% build Starvo in a way where it was favored into Prism, but it did make Starvo weaker into its other matchups to do that. And I think the base Starvo deck versus like the base Prism deck, I think most of the time the Prism deck was slightly favored, but it was losable on either side or winnable on either side. I think it's definitely favored now that Starvo's neutered. It's great into Oldhim. It's great into Lexi. It's
It sounds like Zen is saving the format the way you're describing this. Like, what is beating Prism?
Well, the difference is you could attempt to play other decks, or build your decks in a way to have more game into Prism. It would be my argument.
What would that look like?
More 6s naturally in the deck for decks that don't have poppers. The poppers are actually a lot more relevant into this Prism than it is to Prism and CC. Because
so you're saying in like the Bleak Expanse slot?
What?
Like, are you trying to say that the
I don't think
decks are
Icelander
currently conceding sideboard slots?
Yes,
Zen? Like that's the issue.
Yeah, I think you have to concede some of your armor to Zen in a lot of cases as well, which are deck slots, or you should be. Not everyone is, but I think you should be. I think it gives you a better opportunity to win. I also think cards that, Oldhim would probably never get there, but I think it would still open up Phi would still be a completely reasonable deck and a decent as well. Without Zen, if you want to have like another aggro counter. I think Chain has a much better time without Zen around as well into Prism. And I could be wrong. Prism could just like dominate after that. But these matchups, some of these matchups are highly Prism favored. But they're still playable. But like Oldhim, Starvo, Lexi are just so Prism favored. Icelander, those 4, I think, are very Prism favored. Maybe Viserai comes back if there was no Zen.
Probably, right? It was the best deck in that CC format.
Notoriously, it was good against Prism in the past.
Yep. It was the Starvo counter in the Starvo meta.
Yep.
And it was pretty reasonable to Chain.
It was.
But Chain's got Rune Gate now, so probably a little worse.
Probably a little worse. But no, I do worry about Prism a little bit. If there is no Zen aggro deck, I guess that's a good point I didn't think of.
Yeah, I don't think Phi can keep up with like the unbanning of channel and stuff.
I don't know.
I don't think he fills the role well enough.
I don't know. He's not really. He doesn't care about disruption.
Phi?
So he cares about it in different ways. Like the targeted disruption, I don't think hurts him as much, does it?
Oh, he just cares about a frostbite.
He just cares about frostbite. But you do have the little back.
That's what I'm saying. You do, but I don't know. Like, we have 33 blue Phi who's stronger. And now we're going back to like 15 blue Phi. Like, that's so bad.
18, 19 against ice decks.
I mean, in NL, I'd probably be, I don't even know. I'd want like 20, but then you're sacking power. No, I think Viserai would fill that role if Zen went away.
It's possible. I also, there could just be better ways to play into Prism that aren't explored yet as well. But I think Prism is in a very good spot if you want to bring Prism to your event. Just know that you're going to have to get pretty lucky, I think, against your Zen players. Okay. Anything else on Prism? And I think either Prism's good. I honestly don't know which one's better. I don't think the Prism players know.
Yeah, with the OG Prism,
Any
like the fact
Prism
that
thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the fact that OG Prism can play Empyrean Rapture. So then every Herald just like brings this Spectral Shield on for the ride with it. For 0 resources. It just makes your numbers like kind of nuts. So I saw the Prism list that top 8'd the Battle Hardened in Amsterdam, and I was like, oh my god, Empyrean, that made so much more sense. That's sick.
Yeah.
I don't know. I played against 1 or 2 of those as that. I was like, what are you doing with this shield? Like, that's not going to impact much.
We're swinging for 1, all right? We're swinging for 1. We're blocking 1. Playing some Flesh and Blood. It's a good time.
Both Prisms do look good.
Look, you're just hoping Zen doesn't have time skippers, right? You're like hoping that you sit down across from Zen. They don't have time skippers, and
the one deck that's like a threat in the format.
And they have Traverse, and you go, oh, okay, maybe I can win this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oldhim. I don't think this is a real deck. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
I think he's one of the best positioned for Zen.
Yes. If you're targeting Zen, I think he does decently well into Zen.
Yeah. He's the same as he used to be. Like
He's worse.
swinging his broken weapon.
It's one Okanold.
Yeah, the one Okanald's kind of hard.
It doesn't matter as much for the Zen matchup, which I mean it kind of does, but it's not as big of a deal. It really hurts his other matchups though. Like he just
It takes away like all of your pressure in the matchup though. Like he has no evasion now, right? So like I don't know. Like in my mind, I only played the matchup once and it was like exactly how it used to be. But now I'm just like, can I just put 2 Cosmic Awakening in my deck and just block and just do a little chip and then 2020? Like surely that's good enough.
well, there is the 2 different Okanold builds. There's like I've seen a lot of like fatiguey Oldhims floating around. That deck's absolutely not real. But there is the
with
other
like Rampart, you mean?
Yeah, with like Rampart.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go that way.
Yeah,
so that's kind of nuts.
But there is the other one that topped, which was much more aggressive of an Oldhim build that was trying to use like ice on hits and other on hits to be relevant. And I think that deck's actually pretty good into Zen. It has decent damage, and Zen's playing a lot of 2 blocks, and then it also has good disruption as well. Its issue really falters when it has to play into like the rest of the decks of the format. Its Icelander isn't very good if the Icelander is built decently well, and its Prism isn't very good. I also find its chain matchup to be lacking if the chain player has experience against Oldhim as well. Its Lexi is probably okay. I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time with that, but Oldhim just feels like a comfort pick for people.
Yeah, he feels like where he was like in CC when some of these decks were still around. Like he's pretty good. He's like playable. He's certainly not the best deck, but like he does what he does pretty well. And yeah, he's like cozy. You just you got to block and swing hammer. You block and swing hammer, and the hammer's nuts.
Yeah. What about Viserai, Connor? Tell me about Viserai.
Are we talking turtle, like just OTK Viserai? I know people have tried to. I've seen some like
both, all.
All right. So you can do the half and half of attacks and Mauve's ties and all that good stuff, but then you kind of just have numbers. You don't really have much else going on. The version I was trying to work on was just kind of like a lot of D-reacts and reduce to rune chance and kind of build up a board of rune chance and then do your big combo turn. The new cards they've printed over the last few sets that like every spoiler season were like, what is this? Whatever. And we just toss it in the back, whatever. Those cards are really good. Like Sonata Galaxia, like the card that tutors for an aura. That card is sick. Like it's just zero resources almost every turn. It just goes and gets like 3 rune chance or whatever, like off of Blessings of the Occult or Incantation, the one that makes 1 each turn. So that card's really good. And then I kind of noticed too, like against some of the aggro decks, so against Zen, you often don't have time to like set up the Sonata Arcanics, and I couldn't quite get the proportions of the deck to work out well between the defensive cards, the rune chant makers, and the attacks. So you're kind of light on attacks. So you really need a Sonata for like 28 or whatever, just some huge number to like be able to put together a lethal turn that turn. And it's hard to get to 28 rune chance against Zen, but you can play the new Sonata. I can't remember what the card's called. It's the blue block 3 that it makes X rune chance, and they discard 3 cards if X is greater than 6. So you just do it for 1 million. It basically, you get half of your rune chance. So if you have 20 rune chance, you get 10 more. And then they discard their hand, and you get a turn of reprieve, and then you can kind of like have another little pop-off turn with like a Mordred Tide into whatever, and then throw all your rune chance at them. And that kind of seems like a pretty nice angle against these aggro decks that are kind of too fast for you to fully set up against. And then any of the slow decks you just have all day. Like against Oldhim, like, bro, this game's doing 40 minutes and you're dead from minute 5 of the game. Like there's no way you're gonna be able to kill me in time. Like, so I think he has a lot of setups like that. Yeah. All those slow decks that want to hang out that way. Even Icelander, honestly, like can't really push enough damage to make it really frustrating for you. They kind of have to do like the whole Frost Hex plus like make a bunch of Frostbites and get you that way.
Yeah, I can see that. I would say a couple of, I think obviously Zen has Zen State, which just nullifies your deck, unfortunately.
Yeah, you ever pitch one card?
Chain too.
Yeah, 1 card for 30 value.
Mention it there.
It's so good.
Yeah. I would also say the way that rune chants work with Spectra now makes the deck a lot harder to play. They come in with the weapon swing. Also, So the old way the deck used to work was it didn't do that. You could stack against Prism and still clear Spectra every round, and the rune chants didn't trigger. When they did the rune chant rework, they made it so the rune chants do come in when you swing your weapon against Spectra. But before, you used to be able to stack up your rune chants while clearing their board, and that was how you played the OTK version. That doesn't work anymore. So you have to have some type of sideboard to be able to do like the mauve at face at aura with like weapon. Like you have to be able to play that pattern, and then have like a mini pop off with your Skeletta, I think, in order to have a way to play into Prism.
Yeah, that seems.
Otherwise, they just stack a bunch of Arclights and like you just lose the game. Like you're just like, I'm building rune chants. They're like, Arclight on my turn. I don't care. Like other Arclight. Okay, there are 3 Arclights out now. Good luck on your pop off turn. Like, so yeah, I think that's a bit of a struggle bus there as well. I think I haven't done anything with the Berserk. Have you guys seen any of the Berserk combo deck?
I tested Rhinar for a day, and it's just unreliable.
Yeah.
I think either if you're playing Rhinar, you're playing a less all-in combo deck, and that might be good. Intimidate just randomly has good spots, right? KO Berserk is probably pretty solid. I don't know. I imagine it like has issues with ice, and probably is not fast enough for Zen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I played
I don't
KO.
have much more. I don't have good knowledge on that deck.
Yeah, I played KO Berserk, and it's tough to be able to consistently pop off when you are on the Berserk turn. You kind of need like max Wild Rides, max Pulpings, max Breakneck Battery, like all these just go again attacks, and they kind of suck on like all the other turns of the game. And so you kind of either have to be very all in or kind of more value oriented. And I don't know if there's a really good spot in between where you can get enough out of both sides of the deck to be powerful into your race matchups where you kind of just want to berserk as soon as possible versus like your more slowy, grindy, disruptive matchups. Like I could see matchups where you don't even want berserk and you play like Cast Bones and set up berserk and you just say, hey, I'm gonna throw 18 at you or whatever, just to do the KO thing. And if they're like the nice deck and they have their ice disruption and you just have like 2 blues, they're just taking a bunch of damage. Like you just get to push through.
Yeah. Makes sense. We can talk about Starvo like shortly. I think this deck's bad. Like how terrible it is to admit that. Like so many matchups are like happy to see Starvo. Like if you're playing Chain, Lexi, like Prism, Zen not to the same extent
I think like
as
a
the other ones.
hater build's pretty good into
Zen. A
Zen.
hater build is pretty decent into Zen, but that becomes more coin flippy than it does become like favored for Starvo in my experience. But those other 3 decks, which are, the other half of the meta, is like incredibly happy every time they sit down across from a Starvo. They're like, yes, Starvo. That's what I want to see. And that has like never been the case previously. And even like Icelander and stuff can be like, okay, yeah, this matchup's fine. I think Starvo is not in a great spot right now.
Why is that though? Like, what is?
He has no attacks. He just like he literally has no attacks. Do you think this
new Earth card is going to save him?
I don't know.
The Earth Majestic we saw.
I think he might get some things that are playable out of the new set for sure. I'm not saying they need to unban all the things because we might go back to just like Super Starvo meta again. It's like a hard thing to balance, right?
No Awakening, please.
He just doesn't have any. Like he just like you're like Oakenold crippling. Like he just like plays an Oakenold, plays like one of his other cards, plays like his crippling crush. And you're like, oh, you're like everything's vanilla damage now. Okay, like okay, whatever.
But the Winter's Wail. It's got a non-hit.
That's
interesting. I haven't really experienced much Starvo or played any, so I can't really comment.
Yeah, you should ask Lucas what he thinks of Starvo after he's been touting it. He's just like, dude, this deck's terrible. It's like, yep. Like Lexi preys on it, and Lexi was at least doing matchups against it before it was down powered. It's just, man, it's tough. It's tough out there for the old king. With that said, I think if you want to play any of these decks, you can bring any of these decks to their skirmishes. You can 100% win with any of them. The format is literally the most unsolved format I think we've ever had in the game, that I've ever seen. And there's tons of room for skill expression and finding something that no one's ever seen before. Like, it's definitely like if you have more prep than other people, like, you can do really well in the format, I think. So right now, I think it's very healthy in that regard.
Agreed. No, I think we should have mentioned Dromai and Briar as well. I think Dromai's closer to the first tier, and Briar's definitely in the second tier.
No, I don't know anything about this so-called Briar deck. This deck is not real.
Well, I want to mention Briar because of the set that we're about to get. I think Briar has potential to come back.
Yeah, I can't.
And be a player.
Yeah. If he gets some good stuff, or she gets some good stuff, I think it's very possible.
Yeah. I think Dromai is actually pretty interesting, though. Like, I think it's a deck that'll for sure show up at Skirmish, at least.
Sure, I think the deck's kind of a trash can.
Maybe.
Icelander has Amulet. Like, the matchup's like super easy now. Like,
I'm just saying, be ready.
Starvo doesn't care about no dragons. Starvo might actually be happy to play against Dromai.
All right, in the last round of the Battle Hardened in Amsterdam, I played against Dromai, and my opponent goes turn 2 Tumultai, kill your Crown of Seeds, and then I look at my hand and I don't have any attack that has 5 power, and I'm like, all right, go ahead, and he kills my Tunic or whatever, and then I finally was able to kill the Tumultai, and I was like, yeah, this game is very over without my Crown of Seeds, my poor Crown of Seeds. So you can do that, and you get Tome and all that good stuff, but I think the Zen matchup's going to be too tough. Like, maybe
I wouldn't play against Zen if you're a Dromai. Mm-hmm. Do not recommend.
Yeah, I do want to say though, I almost like don't want to play Starvo this season, because every time I look at Evergreen, I'm like, why can't you just be the new 3-for-7 that makes an embodiment of Earth on hit? Like, Evergreen and Breakground are going to be unemployed so quickly once Rosetta comes out. If we get any like lightning block 3s, any earth block 3s, like, just the fact that you can get some of these like truly just garbage cards out of your deck with just a 3 block is going to be so huge for Starvo, I think. Let alone if you actually have like any playable cards printed or whatever. Like, just filler is going to be great for him.
Yep, I think the set will have some impact, and then I'm curious to see what happens this weekend, these next 2 weekends, and then really when we get to sit down and dig into the format before Chicago, that'll be a lot of fun to really see where the meta shakes out. This is kind of just handful of games initial thoughts for the most part. Any other thoughts on LL before we go to podcast questions?
I like it. It's been fun.
It has been fun, especially the games that you don't pair into Zen. Those are like so fun. Every time you don't pair into a Zen, you go, ooh, I'm down for a fun game. Okay. Next are podcast questions. These are questions that are asked from premium members of our Discord. If you'd like to be able to ask questions on the podcast, watch videos that we put out monthly, ask questions directly to us, find people to practice with, find deck lists from previous tournaments we've gone to with sideboard notes, feel free to join in the link below. Okay, first question here is from Renzo. It says, how many games do you guys play each week during off seasons?
Just off seasons?
Yeah, just off seasons.
I always go to my Monday Armory. Shout out to Highlander Games and everyone going there. We had 2 more new players this week. It's crazy. Yes. Another 10-person event.
We also had 2 new people at our Armory this past week.
Games popping off. Armory decks are working.
They were playing Armory decks. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. In a week, on average, if it's off season, I'm probably playing like 2 or 3 days. I'll play games and the rest I won't. So maybe like, I don't know, 10 to 20 games.
Yeah. This has been my slowest week.
Probably less, maybe 10.
This last week's been my slowest week. I think I played like 9 games the whole week.
Yeah.
The week before that, I played like 20 something. because I keep going back and saying I want to play Enigma and then hating myself. And then the next day I'm like, well, maybe another Enigma game. And then, and then it works out for several games and I'm like, ooh, I'm onto something. And then I play like Azalea and I cry. So I don't know, somewhere in the range of 10 to 30 games, depending on what type of off season it is.
Yeah, sometimes 0 though.
Almost never 0. I don't think there's been 1 week I have played 0.
It's usually like
games
maybe
in the
one
last
full week where I'll
several
do 0.
years. I
No,
can't
that's
remember
fair.
the last time.
I probably haven't either.
I'm not the 10-ish range, but I brew so much during these off seasons because I'll just be like, I'm not trying to make a good deck. I'm just trying to make a deck that can do a thing. And then we'll check at the end to see if the thing's actually good. So I don't know if you guys have looked at the February, but there's like 17 dash
I've
decks
seen.
that are named like item pile dash. And I just tried every iteration of like all these different things. I was like, well, if Dash LL soon, I gotta get all these ideas out and have played them at least once. So I would say the off seasons when I do my most like brewing and deck building and exploring random stuff, playing kind of fringe heroes. Like that's the part I really enjoy out of it. And then I'll play like 5 or 10 games, but get some more Fortnite games in now during the off season. But
Yeah, I'm the same way. If I have an idea, and I usually that's what gets me playing games, right? I like something will click like I should be playing Snapdragons in I don't know Riptide, and then I'll go in the lab and be like, how do I make this work?
Next question from Mativs says, with the number of LL points available this skirmish season, it's very possible that we might see 1 to 5 heroes LL. Similar to last season, we saw many Blitz heroes speedrun their way to LL. Do you think the large rotation of heroes every skirmish season might dilute interest in the format? Obviously, this only applies to LL, or applies to Blitz.
I think it's good to have Blitz trying to be a little bit more fluid. The games don't have the same depth, so it's not as fun to play those same matchups for a year, 2 years, or whatever. So I think them having a little bit natural turnover is really good. Hopefully Zen LLs. That's honestly the main thing that's going to really affect the health of Blitz is if Zen's going to be in this format for a long time. He's really, really, really busted in Blitz. And I mean, Dash LLing is going to break my heart. Tactical Plasma Pistol LLing is going to break my heart. But I think it's good though. I think that little bit of churn is really what the format needs.
Yeah, I'm pretty detached from Blitz, so I don't really.
Yeah.
I can't speak from like my own experience or like experience of playing the format, but I don't know. I think it does feel bad to like not have a home for your hero if Blitz is like your preferred format. And I don't know that LL Blitz format would really be successful, so I'm curious what they do there.
Yeah, maybe eventually. I don't know. I haven't played a Blitz game in
I guess Pit
over
Fight, you can play your Blitz hero there.
like a year and a half. What was the last time I
Yep.
played a Blitz? Just a single
Probably
Blitz
Worlds.
game was World. I think it was.
Yeah.
I think that's the last time I played a single Blitz game. So yeah.
Now this weekend I played my Rock Reinar UPF deck against Commoner Icelander. So I think that's technically a Blitz game for legality reasons.
So yeah, I'm not a good person to ask on what you think about Blitz. I don't touch that format. I'm hoping to never touch that format for the rest of my Fab career.
There's one good deck in Blitz. There's one good deck in Blitz that's the most fun to play.
Zen.
No. Absolutely not. Data Doll. I've probably played 500 Data Doll games in like the last year or whatever. I love it so much. It's so fun.
Why though?
It's like, well, you guys didn't play Magic, but it's Dredge. It's like you just mill through your deck and then everything just ends up in play. And then you just
No, the deck is sweet, but why are you playing that much Blitz?
Just because of Data Doll. I would not play Blitz otherwise.
Oh,
Like it is the Data Doll format. And then people play their whatever other garbage Blitz decks.
Okay. Mike at Blockout Party says, how helpful do you think jamming games of the first strike decks will be as a way to get a handle on the new cards leading up to Tampa?
way greater than 0. Like you can at least learn how. What's her name? Aurora? Is that her name? You
Yep.
can at least learn how she functions, which is better than not doing that. But I think most of these cards are like starter deck exclusive, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think
I
we
think
know.
when I looked at the images, they had like not set images or numbers. I think there was only a couple cards that are actually in the set, so you're not going to get that much info. But if we get the Blitz decks in time, I highly recommend jamming those. And if they don't come, I'm going to play these first strike decks because that's all we got.
I mean, I'm assuming we're going to get some like commons and stuff spoiled, or supposedly the rumor is we're supposed to get most, or if not all of the commons spoiled and just be missing like some rares and majestics. But who knows what actually happens? All I know is as soon as I get enough cards to just build like sealed decks, I'm just going to build them and play them into each other. Like, even if they're missing pieces. Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about the first strike decks. I also want to mention that so before Briar LLs, Aurora is currently legal. So in the next like week or two, you can play Aurora with Rosetta Thorn in Blitz, and it's pretty nice actually. It's kind of fun. If you're like a Runeblade enjoyer, it's definitely like a little bit of sliver of time you get to do this thing before Rosetta Thorn LLs.
Interesting. Dalton asks, does non-LL heroes get LL points for winning LL events? And why?
It's a good question.
And why not?
Why is he asking us?
He's talking about
I don't.
and
Do we know for sure that they don't?
They don't. There's no way.
I assume they don't, but like, is it explicitly stated that they don't?
LL points are, I think, are only for the format that they matter in. So it has to be a CC tournament to get LL points for CC. So even if there was like LL points for LL, they would be its own category of LL points.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, because for drafts, you don't give Blitz LL points, right?
Yeah. So
10 years when we
with that said,
Super LL.
Super
Super LL when they LL out of LL and then it's like God tier or whatever. Like,
with that said, the reason it's funny is because a completely CC legal Kano deck won the last LL tournament. So it was a pretty insane run, though. That is, if you were there and watched the games or know what happened in the games, I don't think they should have won that tournament, but like Kano did Kano things and happened to win the tournament, and that can happen when you play Kano. But yeah, those games are crazy. Okay. Millen asks, can you rate the new heroes from Rosetta by art and hero ability? That's the question.
We got to give it context. Like in terms of power, are we talking like CC Blitz draft?
We're going to talk about CC, and it's going to be by art and by hero ability.
Okay.
Two different metrics.
I don't even know who the heroes are.
Well, you got Xerath. Everyone knows who that is.
Who is that?
Lightning guy from League of Legends.
Oh, I like him a lot.
He looks like Xerath. The art, I don't know, like a 4.
Yeah, I think it's kind of mid.
Big 4 out of 5 on the art.
Oh, out of 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like a 3.5, I think.
Sure.
I don't know. He's cool. I don't know if he speaks to me or not yet. In terms of power, I think he's a 5.
So he probably ability is a 5.
Yeah, he draws cards.
It's either a 0 or a 5. Like that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, like it's not actually generating value as is.
Yeah.
Right. But it lets you play these like nil block cards with less cost. I don't know. His spec got me excited.
Makes sense.
Celia, his art is kind of cool. I like that there's like little people at his feet in the Young Hero version before he turns into whatever entity he is or whatever. His hero ability, when I first read it, I was like, this is either going to be the most fun thing to play with and be really obnoxious to play against, or just like not really matter. Like if your opponent just gets a ton of like velocity and is able to change their deck, that can be kind of boring as you trying to sit there, but that is like part of the wizard playstyle, I guess. So he does fit in with that. But I'm definitely excited about Celia. I'm excited to see all the cards. Like I think the sigils are really cool. I think they're a really cool card design.
Yep. Okay. Speed round the next 3 heroes.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. Verdance, 5 out of 5. Best art I've ever seen on the young hero and adult. Like it's so sick looking. And then her ability is cool. I really like the 4 Earth cards and banish versus 8 Earth cards and banish. I think that's really smart for young and adult heroes. And I think your
I think
abilities
she's like
are
a
sweet.
1 for power.
Hater. You're a hater.
Like
No.
I think she's gonna be like do nothing.
I'm like
Die.
I'm like a 5 on her hero ability. But I'm a sucker for extra value from the thing you're already doing. Like you heal,
Yeah,
I deal
that's fair.
damage. I'm just like, I love this. Like it just like my monkey brain just loves this. Like give me additional value. Art is a 1 for me. I have this does nothing for me. I don't care about Nature Mom. Nature Mom doesn't do anything for me.
Let me see. Nature Mom. She's kind of cool.
I don't like druids. I'm not like any like I just don't none of that stuff ever speaks to me in any game that ever exists.
Especially
Yeah,
you live in
I'm kind of
Jersey.
mid on her too, man.
You live down in Jersey. It's just an industrial wasteland. Get up to upstate
From
New York
Michigan.
What?
or whatever. You just need like actual green around. Like good. Like see the
I
spring
spent
growth.
my
Have
whole
you seen my
childhood in
plant, dude?
green.
Okay. I don't know. But
I lived in the woods. What are you talking about?
all right, I'll say
I
Florian.
hated
Who's
it.
next?
Yeah, I'll say Florian is. I think his art is super sick. He definitely has some like metal,
Yeah, it's for
metal
sure. a
vibes.
5.
Yeah, and his art is sick, and then his ability I think is really cool too. Kind of like that same idea of like when this is turned on, it's gonna be really powerful, and it's exciting. You're like, how many tokens can I make per turn, and do all this like cool stuff. And I like that. That's a style of gameplay for Runeblade, as opposed to just being like attacks and pumps. It's like you actually get to generate value and make stuff on board and everything. So I think he's gonna be cool.
4 and 4.
How are we banishing cards?
4
We'll
and
find
4.
out. Decompose.
I think his art is a 4. I think his ability is a 4.
Yeah, that's a good take.
Okay, Aurora.
She's fun.
1 and 1.
No.
It's how I feel about it. Art doesn't do anything for me. I don't feel anything when I look at this. And the ability
I think her
is,
heart has a cool
doesn't do
vibe.
anything.
Like someone, this is a 5 to someone for sure.
Oh yeah. I don't think the art's bad. I think the art's great. But for me personally, I don't look at this and feel anything. But I can 100%
I like
if someone said this is a 5 to me, I'd say I understand why you think that.
Yeah,
and
this
that
is a 4
valid
for me.
opinion.
Yeah, she looks very cool. Definitely looks cool.
Yep.
2
True
resources.
cost ability.
2 for the ability.
1.
That's a lot.
Her ability is a 1. Her art's a
Oh.
1 for me.
Yeah, I think she's gonna fall short.
I have been impressed.
Like you're gonna try and do some like crazy combo things that you just like need all your cards for, and then you're gonna lose your cards, and not sure what you're gonna do then.
I think
Cool.
it is time for we got lunging press snatch. I think that's the Aurora axis she's trying to work on. That's going to be her best bet.
Millen also asks, do you think we'll get Terra as an adult in an armory deck?
I hope so.
I don't know. I don't
Maybe.
make products. Maybe. Definitely maybe. He's cool. I think he'll be a CC hero at some point.
Yeah, probably.
I want him in LL where I can play him with Crown of Seeds. That's where I really want him. That's what he was born
For
to
everyone
do.
in the Discord, there were a lot of questions about what happened to the plant, and there are plant questions that are a plant picture that has been posted in the Discord
Plant's
on
doing great.
on how the plant is doing. Billy asks, for those of us who have not taken the Zen plunge, is it best to CC prep Zen right now while we're waiting for Rosetta, or should we work on something else?
Depends on like, are you just playing locals or Pro Tour? But I think New is a great idea. It's like, I don't think you can go wrong with New. Like, she's gonna stay super relevant. She's very hard to play against.
Yep.
Worst case, you learn how to beat her. Zen games are fast, so like your time investment isn't that big. Like, at least play some games, I'd say. Like, understand how he operates. I think surely they ban him. Like, please just murder this guy as much as I like Zen. So it's a little risky, but worst
Also-
case you play him in LL, where he's great.
I also think Zen's learning curve is weird. It's like really steep at the beginning and then dramatically just falls off a cliff as you get more comfortable with the deck. Because when you first start, and sometimes it's hard to remember what it felt like, and it's a little different now with less bonds, but like you feel like you have a million options of everything you could grab, and you have to think about like, I could grab this card, or I could grab this card, or I could grab this card. The deck's a little simpler now that like you're not running shift and everything else. But like eventually there aren't actually options. Like you never there aren't real options after you've played the deck enough. You're just like, you just always grab this in this spot, and you always grab this in this spot.
Yeah, it's really just like deck building. That's where the skill is, I think.
Yep. But I think it helps a lot playing against Zen. So you know, like, oh, they played this attack, this attack. Okay, they're going to grab. They're doing this line. They're doing that line.
Yeah, it's all very face up.
Yep. But if you don't have that experience, I could definitely see where you're like, I have no idea how they're ending like this chain off. And then you could get a little confused. So definitely worth knowing.
Yeah, I think now is the time to play some Zen games, or try to find, if you have a hero that you think is cool, like Prism or something that's like kind of complicated, now's a good time just to get games in with it and get some practice.
Yep. Hemlock Ale asks, do you have a favorite card in your collection? And if so, why?
I do. It's my Cold Foil Fi that I got second at Nats and then fourth at Worlds with. It got it graded with the first PCG Worlds label. It's in my trophy case. You can see it back there. It's next to a 9.5 Cold Foil Runaways.
Nice. Mine is a Cold Foil chain that I've had since the first tournament I went to that they gave them out. And then I won a bunch of them, and I put this one, and it has gone with me to almost every tournament I've ever gone to. Because at one point in time, I had a thick slab that had on one side a Cold Foil Winter's Bite, or yeah, not Winter's Bite, Frostbite. So it had a Cold Foil Frostbite on one side, and then underneath it, facing the opposite direction, was my Cold Foil chain. So when I was playing Icelander at all the tournaments, I still had my Cold Foil chain on the board. Just no one knew. It was a secret. So if I gave them a Frostbite, underneath it's just a Cold Foil chain. I was like, yes, I've done this.
Spectral Plasma Pistol. I got it randomly, like I 4-0'd a Super Armory at one of the SCG events, and then they're like, oh, here's the random promos, and they like shuffle them up, and I just like pull one. I was like, oh my god, Plasma Pistol, and I just like one of my favorite cards, and I love that thing. I would say my overall TCG favorite card, I had a bunch of graded 8.5 Charizards from the base set. That's my long-term spec. So if you see me driving a Lambo, it's just those Charizards went up. So
fair enough. Okay, well, I think that wraps it up for us today. We are going to, I kind of want to go play some LL now. So I'll see you guys later. Goodbye, everyone. So long. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope.
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
all 3 pitches of envelope and darkness.